All right, the Paynes fans. Now, I did my episode reviews for, what was it, a Payneful Bounce and a Payne Family Secret. And yeah, based off the reviews, you pretty much get the impression that I haven't been a big fan of the show's return the past couple weeks. But I will say this much. Payneful Situation, or was it Payneful Situation? A Payneful Situation. Last week's episode, I did watch it this weekend, so thankfully this review isn't super late. I'll admit that I did like this episode more than the previous two. I am going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, but this episode really had problems, and I'm probably going to do a I'm definitely going to do a separate video talking about who is at fault for the situation they're in now with the whole money. You know, I feel like it's a four-way tie between Curtis, Ella, Joanne, and Uncle Robert himself. But like I said, I'll mention that towards the end of this video, but I'll do its own separate video going into extreme detail. So just looking over my notes here, this episode I think it was actually pretty good in the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, what we started off with at the church with Joanne, Ella, and Curtis. Then we get to, you know, back to the house where Kendrick goes see Nyla. And the final scene is at the laundromat. So we actually get more than one or two locations. For me, that's a plus. I mean, being in one place can work, but when it's the same scenery over and over again, it gets a bit repetitive. I'm not saying it can't work, but there's a difference between being in one place and actually moving the plot along, character development, versus being in one place and telling these jokes that aren't funny and then dragging out the humor, and there is none to begin with. So this episode to me actually does get points for making most of the scenes worth watching. Now let me just put it this way. First several minutes I feel were a waste of time. First, it was always a treat seeing Jackie on screen, but the whole Joanne lying about having the money after she clearly said that she had money but didn't put it in the bank, that shouldn't have dragged out for as long as it did. I felt like it was a waste of time. And that actually leads into what Ryan says later on in the episode at the laundromat. But let's see. Yeah, really. Yeah, the next big scene, I know it seems like I'm just jumping around, but there really isn't much to talk about during the first few minutes. It was literally just, you got the money? No, I don't. You just said it. No, I don't. And then she leaves. Not to mention, didn't Ella walk out of the room in the last episode actually like, this family with thievery, lies, gigolos? Like, she clearly walked out of the room from Joanne and Curtis, but then at the beginning of this episode, she's back in the room. I don't know, that's weird. But anyway, Nyla opens the door, you know, kids are having dinner. Just a nice scene. It's always good seeing the kids and Nyla together. I just like the dynamic between the three. Then Kendrick comes in. I was not surprised that it was Kendrick. And, you know, he showed up, say hey to the kids. They said hey. Now, maybe it's because I haven't rewatched any episodes of The Paynes. I'm sorry, I really haven't. Especially like the last maybe 4 or 5 before the show went on break. Did Kendrick ever talk with the kids again before this scene? Because, you know, after the whole Lynn's nightmare thing, that one of my favorite episodes of the season so far, you know, it was established that, you know, Kendrick had put the lab mice or rats or whatever in a room to scare her into behaving. So, and again, I could be wrong here. Like, let me know if they did talk with each other again. I cannot remember, so keep that in mind. But if I were a child and then the guy that was like abusing my mom and then torturing, especially Kenny, you know, I really wish Kenny would get some character development. Like, he would be the, you know, pseudo man of the house, you know, taking care of his mom and sister if he could. Pretty much, you know, standing up for his sister as soon as Kendrick walked in. I mean, like, I'm not going to get too much into it because, like I said, they probably talked before this, but I just really don't remember. But in any case, you know, those two are having dinner. Kendrick is like, well, I got the tickets. You ready to go? It's like, no, I can't leave. The Paynes are gone. What? And it's like these tickets are expensive. Two things about this scene. Number one, we begin to see that even though Kendrick is getting better, nice cut. I actually do appreciate it when characters point out that another character got a haircut or something like that, because usually there might be 2 episodes back to back where the time doesn't even pass. It's like maybe an hour or so from the last episode, and then the character's hair looks completely different. Because I think he had like a fade, you know, when he talked with Curtis about marrying Nyla, and then we get to this episode where he got a fresh cut. So I do appreciate the continuity right there. But then, you know, we see that even though he has gotten better, he's still a bit agitated. Even though he apologizes for it, he still has that, you know, the demons in him. And that is actually a good thing to note, because it makes Nyla's response to the marriage proposal very more valid. In fact, like, look, let's slow down. I know you're getting better, but you're not better. I mean, he's only been to a handful of classes. So yeah, if some months went by or something like that, it will make more sense as opposed to maybe a couple of weeks. But yeah, then we just see him being pushy, yelling at Nyla, get the Paynes on the phone. Then I can understand her nervousness, but her overstaying her welcome in terms of abusing the hospitality is like, well, when are you coming home? I really need to go somewhere important with Kendrick. Can you come watch the kids? And then it's like Curtis and Ella clearly stated in the last episode, we got to go somewhere tonight. And even if it wasn't like super important, like, you know, we know it is in regards to the money, how do you know they weren't going out for like a night on the town, maybe a romantic dinner of their own, which they haven't really done much of? So for her to actually try to ask them, oh, excuse, my voice went out for a minute, ask them what time they're getting home to watch your kids, I can definitely see why Curtis is a bit more agitated. It's like there's a difference between Curtis being selfish and agitated to him having legit reasons to be, and this is the exact reason of it. And, you know, Ella's like, we probably won't even be home for like another hour or so. And then they get off the phone, and Curtis pretty much chews Ella out for good reason, so that's that. And then we get to Nyla leaving the kids, and I think the next episode is called Home Alone, but given the fact that the trailers for the Paynes, I think it's not even trailers, I think it's like here's a first look at the next episode of the Paynes, and it's like maybe 10 seconds long, and I'm like, that's not even worth doing a video on. But yeah, she leaves the kids alone. And 2 things about this. I believe I said the first thing was about the whole, you know, Kendrick getting the haircut, but the second thing, I'm not saying that Kendrick is right for what he did, because, you know, he was the one that actually enticed her to leave the kids alone. But my thing is this. Nyla told Kendrick in the last episode that she would call him back after getting Ella's answer, because it's like, look, I can't just tell the Paynes I'm leaving tonight again with you. They watched the kids last night. I will ask Miss Ella first, then I'll call you back. So to be honest, here's my thing here. If Nyla had called Kendrick to tell him that she couldn't go out tonight, and Kendrick still came over and made her leave, I would feel bad for Nyla. Still would suck for her to leave the kids, but I would feel bad for Nyla, because Kendrick is literally overstepping his boundaries, refusing to take no for an answer, and I would feel like, oh my God, she knew that she either had to leave the kids or get her ass beat in front of the kids. So yeah, it would be one of those scenarios. But Kendrick clearly stated like, come on, you ready to go? And then Nyla just vaguely explained why she couldn't leave. So Nyla didn't call Kendrick back when she said she would. Number 2, were the kids aware that, you know, Nyla was being taken away? Because, I mean, the kitchen, they weren't even eating in the kitchen. They were eating at the dining table, which is like right in between the living room and the actual kitchen. So did they not hear what was going on? It's like, it was a funny scene when they left. It's like, yeah, this chicken good. We could tell mama ain't cook it. Funny scene, but at the same time, nobody really questioned, okay, mama and Kendrick have gone away somewhere. What do we do now? So we can assume that after leaving the laundromat, Ella and Curtis are going to come home and see the kids left by themselves, and then Nyla's going to come back with Kendrick, and then that'll lead to another situation. But basically, I was a bit confused by that. I mean, it is what it is, but I'm just saying. Okay, so we got Nyla, we got Joanne at the beginning, Kendrick being a prick. Okay, So basically, we get back to the laundromat for the final scenes of the episode. Talking with Terrence, saying sorry over and over again. I can understand Terrence's frustration, and luckily enough, Ella does as well, because he's going to put in a lawsuit because of this whole situation. He ended up losing money, which is kind of ironic because, well, if I'm not mistaken, Terrence and his crew came over for an estimate of how much it would cost to renovate the place, and then he was the one to find the money. Like, I am in no way blaming Terrence for what's going down with the money situation, but to be fair, I would say this much: if I were a contractor and I found a crap ton of money in somebody else's possession, like in the place I'm supposed to fix up, and they take the money and they use it to pay me, part of me would say, ooh, no questions asked. But then another part would be like, well, this is a bit shady. I mean, a laundromat that's run down in a bad part of the neighborhood where, you know, gang bangers and probably drug dealers have been in and out of this laundromat before, you know, Curtis and everybody, well, Curtis bought it. I wouldn't know that money is such a good idea. But to be honest, like, if I were him, the money, and I was able to pay my people and whatnot, I'd be, hey, whatever, job done. It's not my problem. But, you know, it was a bit shady how it went down. Like, you know, finding the money in a place like that. But then I do believe that Ryan and a few other people said in front of him that, you know, hey, Uncle Robert left the money. So, you know, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it sucks. But, yeah, even if Terrence does get a lawsuit, it's like, what is it? They said they would get a mortgage and whatnot. Then we get a long, drawn-out scene about getting jobs or something like that. But, yeah. And let me see. You're looking at my notes here. Yeah, it would suck Curtis going back to work. I mean, after he retired, uprooted them from Georgia to come down to Florida to retire. God, I mean, if anything, and I said this in the last video, Curtis is actually the victim. I mean, not just him being, I mean, you could say the same thing about House of Pain, like, you know, having to take in CJ and his kids and everything like that. And Janine being on drugs and stuff. Yeah, when you get to that age, and then you really don't want to be at that point. I mean, Calvin, it was hard enough to get him to graduate college and get your only child to leave the house, but then you got, you know, your nephew, his wife with issues, and his 2 kids under your roof as well. I ain't gonna lie, I can see why he is as grumpy as he is. So that's just that. But Ryan shows up because Curtis calls. They explain the situation to him. Then he talks about how he knows about Joanne's money. Luckily enough, that scene wasn't as drawn out as the beginning of the episode about Joanne lying about not having money. But the thing was, and I'm glad Ella said this because this would have been one of my biggest gripes of the episode if it hadn't come up. There's no need of trying to pay, like, you know, the bank or Terrence off with Joanne's portion of the money, because the money is stolen to begin with. You're telling me that you deposited, a lump sum of cash in the bank and they trace the serial numbers. So given the fact that you're trying to pay off, you know, a debt or whatever, are you sure they wouldn't check the serial numbers again? So even though Curtis wants to pursue it, it does seem like a stupid lost cause because it is the same serial number. So basically, if anything, trying to pay off your counterfeit, your counterfeit fraud with, not counterfeit, but what is it? Paying your debt from stolen money with stolen money will probably land you in more trouble than you already are. Like losing a laundromat and a lawsuit from Terrence would probably be the least of your worries. You might actually drag Joanne into this, but yeah, that's pretty much the episode in a nutshell. It did have its good parts now. I did like the progression of going to different locations. You know, the whole seeing a taste of who Kendrick still is, despite, you know, the facade he seems to be putting on now. I do believe he is getting better, but he can still be easily agitated. I just feel like he is forcing himself on Nyla. Like, you know, I bought these tickets already. Well, you bought the tickets. Number one, she didn't ask you to, and it wasn't confirmed that she can actually go on the date. So we'll see how things play out. That's why I did the video about Nyla getting the abortion. It is a possibility. Keep in mind, I recorded that video before the episode on Friday night, so I might do a part 2 to that at some point. But yeah, so the big things here is, you know, Nyla left the kids alone. Joanne has money, and look, I'm not condoning crime, but I'm just saying, like, if you get a crap ton of money that you know is from a stolen you know, circumstance, don't put it in the bank. And if you spend money like that, spend it in small doses here and there. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, it's crazy. But I really can't wait to do my video going over who's at fault for the whole money situation they're in now. And oh yeah, okay, here's something I want to talk about. Hang on, I listed in my notes. I just gotta put it in order. Okay. Oh my god, yeah, this is annoying. But like I said, I'll get to in my other video. Ella talking about my fault. You're the one that took us from Georgia and came here. You're the one that bought the laundromat. Yada yada. Ella, shut the hell up. I am sorry, but like I said before, yes, Kurt, and I said this in my early videos, it was wrong. It was insensitive for Curtis to do what he did. But at the same time, most of everything that's happened since you've moved to Florida has been your fault. You're the one that allowed Nyla and the kids to move in. You're the one that after Terrence found the money decided to take it upon yourself to take the money and put it in the bank. Then after not telling Curtis about the money, almost faced a lawsuit from Joanne, which thankfully Nyla, being one of the first smart people on the show, told Joanne that it didn't really matter what you did because you sold the laundromat in a terrible condition. And even if you got a lawyer, you'd lose money and not even get any of the money from Uncle Robert. Then Ella took it upon herself to decide, you know what, I'm going to split the money with Joanne. Then it was discovered that Uncle Robert has been shipping money to Joanne, possibly for a majority of her life, ever since the robbery, from buying her a car to kicking her money now and then. And who knows if he was kicking her money while she said, I was taking care of him in his old age and I didn't get anything. So yeah, Ella has no right to complain anymore. So like I said, that's a small rant compared to the video I'm going to be doing soon. But 7.5 out of 10, that is a good score considering how low episodes have been on this show, in my opinion. But what did you think about A Painful Situation? What do you think is going to go down next week in Home Alone? So if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Keep up with my content. More have and have not if loving you is wrong videos are on the way. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you all soon.